Hello everyone, welcome to the Amrita IS monthly current affairs series, and we are finishing up our May month. So some of the sessions of June month have been uploaded, but we are finishing up with May month with the economy video. This is going to be a relatively small session. So starting with the SARFAESI Act, recently the Supreme Court has given some of the comments on some of the clarification with respect to the application of the SARFAESI Acts on the cooperative banks. Okay, so we have read about cooperative banks. Cooperative banks is a part of your economic statics syllabus, so do prepare from that. Cooperative banks are very important for this year because a lot of scams have been happening in the cooperative. A lot of accountability mechanism have been established by the RBI, and finally the SARFAESI Act is also in the news. Let us discuss some brief about the SARFAESI Act. So it goes back to 1991 when Narasimhan I committee was established. He was earlier the RBI governor. So when he got retired, a committee was set up under him, and especially you can see in the process of the LPG reforms as well. So he talked about that we have to improve our loan recovery process. Loans have been given, but at the time of the recovery, we are facing some of the problems. So he said that we should have a institute such as DRT, that is Debt Recovery Tribunals, so as to limit the court interference in the process of the this loan recovery process. Why is it so? Because court tends to elongate the process if they don't have the enough expertise or the context in which this is going on. So it takes a lot of time and it all creates MNPAs and the problems. Then again his committee was set up in 1998, and he said that this DRT that was set up, it needs to be strengthened with a law. So some law has to be created so as to give it more teeth. Then they created SARFAESI Act. Okay. Then 2013 there was an amendment. So government said, okay, now within the SARFAESI Acts there is a definition of banks, and within the definition of banks, now these cooperative banks, that is multi-state cooperative banks, will also be included. Now these multi-state cooperative banks, these acts are created by the state government, and from where the question comes in, whether the parliament has the authority to do that or not, whether the parliament has the authority to include an act which is passed by the state government within their own territory. Okay, so it's a Supreme Court has to decide that. So that was in the Supreme Court. In this context, we are discussing this topic. Before starting, let us discuss some detail about the SARFAESI Act. So SARFAESI Act is for the secured creditors. What does this mean? So creditors can be of two types: those who give money with a collateral, and those who do not, those who give money without collateral. So this act cover only those creditors, those who give money with collateral, which are backed by the collaterals. Then this act talk about the creation, registration and the regulation of the asset reconstruction company. Okay, these are asset management company or ARC, whatever you want to tell it. So what are these companies? These are very specialized companies. I hope you know this. These are very specialized agency which tend to recover. For example, in a bank, a loan has become an NPA, right? Then what to do with this NPA? So bank say, okay, this has become an NPA. Now these asset reconstruction company will try to take maximum out of these loans, right? And that is their expertise, how to take maximum from a bad loan, how to take maximum profit from a bad loan. Okay, so that is the asset reconstruction company. So they do the work of asset reconstruction or the securitization. Securitization means, so converting this illegal asset, for example, someone's house, to into the marketable securities. Marketable security, that is securitization, so that some money we can get from these assets. Then they talk about enforcement of the security interest by the lenders without the interventions of the court. So these DRT, this asset reconstruction company can take the possession of, for example, a house you have presented as a collateral, you are not able to pay the loan. So the companies can take over your house, they can take over the management of a company, or they can ask the borrower, okay, if you can't pay now, just pay me. You take loan for from someone else and then pay me, then pay the bank or NBFC, housing NBFC. Okay, they have also given one of the reliefs to the people from whose loan has become NPA. So they can also appeal in the DRT, Debt Recovery Tribunal. Then they can, if they are not satisfied with the DRT's judgment, they can go to the debt recovery appellate tribunal. So appeal structure is there. Then if they are not happy with that, then they have to go for the courts. But some of the caveats are there. For example, they are default for, let's say, 1 crore rupees. 1 crore default is there. Then they have to submit around 50% of the fees before going to the court. Okay, right. So that to basically follow the orders of the DRT, so that DRT gets some teeth. Otherwise, it will only be a case after case. Now, this provision, this is important for us that these provisions are not applicable to agricultural land. For example, any loan that is given for the agricultural land, that for those SARFAESI Act will not be there. For example, someone has some farmer has taken agricultural loan and he has given collateral, for example, his land, then his land will not be taken up. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, if the due is less than the 20% of the principal amount, for example, principal amount is 1 crore rupees, so 20% means 20 lakh. So if the due is less than 20 lakh, then don't take any action. Then if the security interest, if the what payment has to be is less than 1 lakh, then also don't go for this act. So as to reduce basically all these, if they go for it, a lot of cost will be done for this ARCs, and this a lot of money has to be paid to the people who will this take over this loan, who will extract these loans from the debtors. So in the process itself, a lot of money will be lost. Hence, they have decided these limits. Okay, remember this. This can come in the examination. One of the options can be SARFAESI Act is applicable on such and such conditions, or on not on such and such conditions. Now coming back to the current affairs. So what is basically the news we have discussed? The issue was with respect to the cooperatives. So first, whether the parliament is competent enough to regulate a debt recovery procedure of cooperative banks. These cooperative banks which are set up under the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act, right? Every state has set up this own act. So whether the parliament has the authority to do it in 2013, the amendment procedure. Then next, whether this SARFAESI Act can be applied to these cooperative acts, so challenging this 2013 judgment, or 2013 amendment I should say. Then the question itself, whether these cooperative banks falls under which category, whether they fall under the union list or whether they fall under the state list. If they fall under the union list, because entry 45 in union list says that banking will be under the union list, so the prerogative of the union government or the union parliament I should say. Then 32 entry in the state list says that cooperative societies will be under the state. So where this cooperative bank will lie? So there is a fine line. In both of them they can lie. Then lastly, whether the definition of the banking company in the Banking Regulation Act 1949, whether this is applicable or not, whether this cooperative banks come under it or not, whether the cooperative banks you will include under the heading of the banking or not. Getting my point? So these are the questions on which the court has to decide. So what court has decided, what the constitutional bench has held, I think the matter will be closed from here on. So parliament, constitutional bench has held that first of all, the parliament does have the competence to amend, right, to providing the procedure for recovery of the loans for all this cooperative banks. CB means cooperative banks under the SARFAESI Act. They have said that CBs are registered under the state laws, but it is within the ambit of the union list, that is entry 45, that is banking, not under the state cooperatives. Then third, CBs involved in the activities related to the banking will be covered under the banking company under the Banking Regulation Act 1949 and any other legislation applicable to the bank under the RBI Act. Then lastly, the judgments hold significance. Why? Because the cooperative banks are facing a lot of problems. Cooperative banks, a lot of defaults are happening in the cooperative banks. A lot of NPA processes are going in the cooperative banks. So as to deal with these problems, the SARFAESI Act has to be applied to it. Okay, when it is applied to it, they can call for better recovery of the loans, right? Okay, then so just a bit difference. Then if we have these procedure, what is the difference between SARFAESI and IBC? IBC we have covered. So basically IBC is given a step ahead. Why? So in IBC, in SARFAESI we have discussed that only the secured creditors are included. But in IBC, the unsecured creditors are also included. Those whose lending is not backed by any collateral. Okay, so the IBC protects both secured and unsecured creditors. Secondly, IBC says in the code of IBC itself, it says that the code takes precedence over the SARFAESI. Okay, if the insolvency proceeding is going on, then the IBC will dominate over the SARFAESI Act. Then third, the process of adjudication. So we have seen SARFAESI Acts, we have only DRT, then DRAT. What about IBC? In IBC, we have seen for companies and limited liability companies, there is a National Company Law Tribunal is there instead of the DRT. For individuals and limited partnership firms, we go for DRT, while in the IBC, for companies and the limited liability, we go for the NCLT, right? So this is one thing you need to keep remember. IBC, just to remind all the students, those who are seeing it for the first time, we have covered in detail in the March month part 2, economics. So if you have not seen that, go and see. I have explained it in a very brief. What is IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, with its origin and what is the current situation. While SARFAESI Act assigned the DRT as the education authority on the Act, we have NCLT and NCLT for the limited liability firms and the companies. So this is your information with respect to SARFAESI, and this much is enough. Next is sugarcane in India, some of the details, because this report of the Niti Aayog has come, final report on the task force of sugarcane and sugar industry. So sugarcane becomes a relatively more important topic for both prelims, not much for prelims, but especially for main exam, whether in the geography or whether in the agriculture in the GS3. So India is the world's second largest producer after the Brazil. Brazil is the price maker of the sugar in the whole world. In 1998, the licensing requirement to open a sugar mill was abolished. So earlier, before 1998, if you have to set up a sugar mill, you need to have a license. Now that has been abolished. But however, some current scenarios are there which the task force has identified, which is leading to the problems in the sugar mill. They are de facto ultra regulatory norms are there. For example, every designated mill is obliged to purchase from the cane farmer within the cane reserve area, and the farmers are bound to sell the mill. For example, one mill is there. Second also says that the distance between one mill and the second mill has to be 15 kilometer. 15 kilometer has to be the difference between one mill 1 and mill 2. So mill 1 and mill 2, the distance have to be 15 kilometer. Now every mill has a cane reservation area. This area of the sugar cane will go to this particular mill. Now the mill owner cannot refuse it, and the farmers cannot sell to the anyone else. Getting my point? So it is de facto creating monopoly over this area. It is harmful for both farmer as well as for the mills. For example, a situation of a mill is not good. It is not able to pay, but the second mill is able to pay, so but they cannot sell their product to the second mill. Vice versa, a mill wants a better quality of the sugar cane, but in a place that quality of the sugar cane is not available, so it is not profitable for the mill to operate in that case. So it is not a very good situation that is there, or we need to amend this particular situation that Niti Aayog has identified. Some of the details. So as we have discussed, India has around 18.7%, or you can say 18% of the total production to the world. You can see Brazil's around 40% production comes from Brazil alone. After India, it is China. Okay. Secondly, with respect to the states, you need to remember, everyone knows the first one is UP, highest in area and highest in production. Second is Maharashtra. Second is Maharashtra. Third is Karnataka. Third one you remember, please. Third one is Karnataka. Everyone remembers first and second, but less people remember the third one. So if the question will come, they will confuse you between the third and the fourth. Karnataka, then Tamil Nadu. So keep that in mind. Then one also price of the sugar cane. So it is known as the FRP, that is fair and remunerative price. This question has already come. What is this? How it is different from MSP? I think I have discussed it earlier as well. In the MSP, what is happening? The government is procuring the commodities which are under MSP, for example, rice or paddy, or rice and paddy is the same thing, rice, wheat, pulses, at a price. So who is going from farmer to the government? It is going MSP, minimum support price. What about this FRP? FRP is the price which the mills have to pay to the farmer. Mills have to pay to the farmer this price. Getting my point? MSP, the government is paying to the farmers. Okay, so this is a difference between both of them. So how this FRP, so first of all you got the difference, I hope. Then what is the how the central government decides this price? The same way they decide the price of the MSP on the recommendation of the CACP, that is Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices. That is prices, not rices. Okay. Apart from that, over and above this FRP, the states can also advise their price. So that is called state advised price. Okay, some states specific sugarcane price are there. Okay, it is mostly, it is said, it is a political in nature. For example, the elections in the UP are coming in. The government has decided, okay, FRP has to be 1600 per kg. For example, I am giving you a very rough example. Now these state governments, for the sake of popularity or populism, they will say, no, we will give you 2000 rupees. So additional 400 rupees, so additional, the final amount is known as the state advice price. The final amount that has to be given from the mill owner to the sugarcane farmer. Next news is Rice Export Promotion Forum. So it has been set up under the aegis of the APEDA, that is Agriculture and Processed Food Export Promotion and Development Authority. Okay. So Agricultural Processed Food Export and Promotion Authority, we have discussed it earlier in our earlier sessions. So from the name itself, Rice Export Promotion Forum. So this forum, what it will do, it will identify, document particular, reach out to the stakeholders so as to increase the export of the rice in the global market. So this forum will comprise of the rice industry, people from the rice industry, the exporters, the officials from APDA, Commerce Ministry, and those people. Ultimately, what we have to do, we have to increase the export of the rice, both Basmati component and the non-Basmati. Basmati, you know, the GI tag in India, a very famous variety all over the world. So we export a lot of Basmati exports. Okay. For example, you can see our Basmati exports are 4.72 billion as compared to non-Basmati export. So Basmati is more exposed rather than the non-Basmati variety. Then we have the rice production, some details about the rice production in India. Remember, India is the largest exporter of rice, exports from India. Remember this, India is the largest exporter of rice. In India, rice is also one of the commodity which is exported the most. Okay, right. Major season of cultivation is Kharif. India is the second largest producer of rice in the world after China. So China is the largest producer and the second largest producer is India. Okay. Next is console bonds. So what are these? The very important one for exams. This can come as well. These are also known as the perpetuity bond. Now let us first discuss bonds very quickly. So bonds are basically, for example, government issues a bond. So what does government want? Some money from your side. So for example, 100 rupees you have given the government, and every month government or every year government will pay you some interest. Right? So this is the normal how bonds operate very roughly. What about this console bonds? In this you have given, and yes, after, for example, the maturity of the bond is after 10 years or 5 years. So after 10 years you will get this 100 rupees back, and every year you are getting this interest. Very easy, just like you take a loan, similarly a bond. So it has, first of all, a normal bond has a maturity date. Okay, this is a bond for 10 years and the interest rate, right? But in the console bond, there is no maturity. There is no maturity, only interest rate is there. Okay, so what kind of bond it will be? That is why it is called a perpetuity bond. Perpetual bond, the fixed income security with no maturity date. Yes, you will get from the government or those who are issuing this console bond or the perpetual bond, you will get the earning every month, but you will not get the full amount, or there is no maturity date. Okay, now some people are saying the government should issue these bonds instead of the PM care funds. Instead of telling people to donate to the PM care funds, the government should go for the console bond, or even after going for PM cares, government can go for console bond to get some more money to inject into the system. Okay. Yes, the bonds can be redeemed at the issuer's discretion. For example, government says, okay, after 100 years we will give you the maturity, or some time has passed by, now government thinks now we can pay you back, they can do it. So what basically the idea is? The idea is that individuals, in this case, individual pay the government, for example, 100 crores, right? Government say, okay, every year I will pay you 1 crore back or 10 lakhs back every year, for till the time the maturity comes, and nobody knows when the maturity is going to be. So what will be the benefit to the government? Benefit to the government is that it will get a lot of money back, a lot of money, 100 crore, a lot of money they will get. Why the individuals will interest? Because they know the government is Hira hai sada ke liye, the diamond is forever, so the government is forever. So the government will remain, it will give you steady money every year. Every year you will get some interest rate, every year you will get the money. Your collateral is not going anywhere, your some amount, your principal amount is not going anywhere. And this is also a way you can help your government in the times of crisis. For example, times of war, in the times of corona, for example, pandemic. Now these bonds have been issued in the time of World War I by the British government. British government has also issued these bonds in the time of the World War I. So the citizens have put money into this, and the government used to give them the money back. Recently the government decided, this UK government also some year back, okay, we will pay back some of the core principal amount to the people. Okay, and this is the whole idea behind this perpetual bond. It will be more beneficial than the PM CARES. Why is it so? It will be more beneficial because the people will have a say in it, or people will, each time they get the money back, they will remember what is their contribution to the country's progress. Now once you have given the funds to the PM CARE, now there is no issue, now there is no idea or nothing is going on, just everything is easy going. You have given it once, there is no continuous accountability, or continuously you are in a touch with the government with respect to corona, like that. So the console bond is basically the idea that is being floated, the government can take it up. Okay, right. Next is just a difference between Atmanirbhar Bharat versus the import substitution. So import substitution was the policy which was advised and adopted by India in the early times in the independence. So what was it? It was a centralized top-down model that we need to reduce the imports from the other nations. Okay, we need to reduce the imports from the other nation, and we have to produce the things from our own. So how will we reduce the things coming from outside? We will impose very high import duties, tariff. We will discourage the foreign trade. We do everything from our side, right? We'll become self-reliant, something sort of that. So what is this Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan? This basically focuses on revival of the economy, first thing, then improving the ease of doing business, including the foreign firms. It is about freeing up Indian entrepreneurs. It is about innovation from bureaucratic hurdles. So just to tell you in a very layman term, it is nothing but ease of doing business, nothing else. The idea is to improve our own manufacturing that has been floated in before corona hit the India. It has just been given new branding, I will say. Okay, so Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan has nothing to do with import substitution. It is everything to do with making sure that we improve the manufacturing in India, we improve the industry sector in India, we provide more employment to the people, and that is the whole idea behind the Atmanirbhar Bharat. So I will say it is just nothing more than but a new branding, new packaging of the old needs, the old idea that have been floated by the economic survey. Okay. So the Prime Minister has said there will be the 5 pillars of this Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So what will be the 5 pillars, sir? Economy, infrastructure, system, economy. So quantum jumps not in, so all these things are just rhetorics only, right? You can use all these in your mains exam, but okay, fine. Infrastructure, system driven process, technology driven process should be there. Demography we should exploit, demand we should exploit. So these are the Atmanirbhar Bharat, more important for mains than for prelims. In prelims, they can ask about this import substitution. Remember, once they have asked about this import cover. So, though it seems like an easy question, but 1, 2, 3, 4 option, they will frame in such a way, those options will be very close, Hence, it becomes relatively difficult to eliminate the options. Next, in the corona time, we have seen some of the state governments are coming in and this amending this labor reform law. Why they are doing so? So basically, many companies from China are, this is not a, looks like a map of Australia, but that's fine. So many countries from China are going from it, taking away from China to other places. There are many reasons for it, because first of all, that process was already happening because the labor cost in the China was increasing. Okay. Secondly, due to this pandemic, many countries believe that we need to put a premium on the things that China has done, right? China's non-transparency, China's non-opaqueness. So we need to punish China in some way or the other. So some of the countries are taking away their companies from China to countries such as Vietnam, Thailand, and very little are coming to India. But India wants to make it a destination for these companies. So how will you make sure that these companies come to India? By reducing the cost of these companies, by giving them more flexibility into the labor laws. Okay, that's the whole idea. So from prelims perspective, it is not very important. We just need to know a bit features about this labor law. From the mains perspective, the labor reforms becomes an important topic for this year. In fact, labor reforms are always an important topic for our mains examination. Okay, so labor is a subject in the concurrent list. First thing you need to remember it. So it's a subject in the concurrent list. Both the center and the state are allowed to legislate on this subject. Because of this, we have a plethora of the laws. So we have around 44 labor laws around the central government, around hundreds under the state governments. And this is what bureaucratic shackles are all about, or the procedures and all these things, because of which the growth is stifled. So these are the labor laws, and but majority of the things you will learn from the main examination. So plea in the Supreme Court challenges the changes in the labor laws, right? Now many people have said that the changes that have been made by some of the state governments are against the international law. They violate the human dignity. They are against the DPSP. They exploit the laborers. But those are the points important for prelims, not for mains. Okay. Next, the last topic, that is draft national fisheries policy by the Department of Fisheries. You can see the minister, Mr. Giriraj Singh. So the features is national fishery management plan, because a draft, so not very important for discussion. So they want to enact a very comprehensive legislation, that is National Marine Fisheries Bill. This year fisheries becomes an important topic. So we have discussed fisheries with you with Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. I think we have discovered that in the May month governance itself, May 2020. Okay, so Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, we have discussed. The idea is to bring the blue revolution. It has two components, central sector scheme and centrally sponsored component. So if the question comes, this scheme is a central sector scheme, this is wrong. Okay, so within we have two types of scheme, central sector scheme, centrally sponsored scheme, and then we have read about it. So just go into the May governance and see from there. Okay, fisheries becomes a very important sector for this time. So with this we finish. I wanted to include some of the insights into the economic survey on the fisheries. I will do that in the June month economy. Okay, I thought to include it in here, but just missed out. Okay, but I will include that into the next month's economics classes. So that's the end of the session. Let us quickly revise what we have done. So we started with the SARFAESI Act. We discussed a brief timeline. What was the SARFAESI Act all about? Very brief. We have discussed. And what is the recent context in which we are discussing, and that's why it becomes relatively more important. Then we discuss the sugar cane in India, rice export promotion forum, the rice production in India, that India is the largest exporter of the rice in the world. So remember this fact. Console bond, we have discussed console bond or the perpetual bond, they are said. Then Atmanirbhar Bharat versus the import substitution, and finally the labor law framework and the draft national fisheries policy. So with this, we officially finish this May month, and one thing also, we finished the 12-month current affairs of all the from June 2019 to May 2020. So 12 months we have done around 150 plus videos on YouTube. So those who have stayed with us for this process, I will say thank you everyone. We will finish this June and July as well, but it's been a great experience. Okay, thank you everyone. See you in the next class.